to welcome Violante and Donatella from Donatella Cinelli Colombini in Montalcino. How are you guys doing?
Very well, very well. Very proud to be with you.
Well, I'm really happy.
Invitation.
I mean, I'm so happy to have the two of you here today. I mean, there are a number of reasons. For one thing, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but your wine was one of the first Brunellos that I actually was able to try, going all the way back to 2005 when I started trying to learn about the region and such. I believe it was the 2001. And it was, you know, it was given to me in a mix of Brunello and a case for the idea of me trying to explore and learn about the region and such. And as I started reading about the history and came to realize just how much history there is behind your family, but then also the accomplishments that you have made, Donatella, the things that you have done, the changes that have taken place in Montalcino because of you, but then also how the winery has evolved over the last 15 years. And it makes me so happy to be able to bring you guys here so that we can talk about all these things with Vinous's the watchers of our video today and such. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. I guess the first thing that I would really like to talk about is I don't think a lot of people actually realize just how deeply rooted your family is in Montalcino, Donatella, and just how far back it goes. Even, you know, going back to Fattore de Barbi and such. And, you know, I mean, if you could give us a little bit of a family history, how your family started in Montalcino, and, you know, moving up to where we are today, that would be fantastic.
Yes. First, thank you for this invitation. I am very happy to speak with you and with your guest. I was born in a wine family of Montalcino. My family produced wine from centuries. And of course, it is a great opportunity for me to born in a family where everybody speak about wine, and I grew up in the middle of the vineyard, close by the barrels, and so the love for wine grew up with me, grew up with my culture. In 1990, I worked in my family estate until 1998, when my mother decided to retire and to give the winery to my brother Stefano. And so
that was Vittoria de Barbi, correct?
Yeah. And so I asked to my mother to give me the opportunity to follow my dream, to produce a great wine with my name and with my style. And so my mother gave me a little property in the Montalcino Hill, and my father gave me another property in the south part of Tuscany, close by Montalcino, and in the Chianti area. And the beginning was really difficult because the two properties was quite destroyed. In the Montalcino property, there was a ruin with a tree inside because the building was collapsed. And all around there was an old vineyard to be replanted because the clones was not so good. And also the other property needed a big conversion. And so my mother, to help me in the beginning, in the startup, gave me a little quantity of Brunello in barrel. And this wine was very important for me because to begin the commercialization, to begin the brand. And I needed a cellar master, an enologist to care this wine because I am not an enologist. I studied history of fine art. And so I phoned to the School of Enology in Siena asking a good student. And they said me, no, it's impossible. You have to book a good student 1 or 2 years before, in advance. And when I asked for a female cellar master, the answer was different. Yes, we have a lot because the good wineries don't accept a woman as manager. And so I discovered a discrimination that was so normal that nobody, and me too, nobody saw that. And I decided to organize a winery with a female staff, the first in Italy, just to show that the good wine, the great wine, are made by women and yes, needs of intelligence, of talent, not strong body. And it was a big luck because this choice became a symbol of our project and a strong help in our decisions. Because of course, at the beginning, I needed to distinguish myself, my production from the family estate. It was only after, little by little, that I discovered the real thing that I wish, that I want to do. But I spent a lot of time to understand the terroir, the need of the vineyard, and now, with the help of our consultant, Madame Lavigne, I think to be able to give the best opportunity to nature, to the vineyard of that area of Montalcino.
Absolutely. I mean, you beautifully summed up a number of the things that I certainly want to touch on today as well. The story of bringing in your own cellar master, I think, is absolutely, it's a remarkable story, and it's one of those things that a lot of people don't actually realize. You know, yes, I can tell you that as a consumer of wine 15 years ago, and then at one point being in the retail side, and now writing about it. The story of your winery being an all-woman winery has always been something that's been included in the marketing of your wines from retailers and such. But I don't think anybody realizes just how deep and just how important it is, how that came to be. The idea that even going back only to the late 90s, that there was still such a difference between what was accepted, a woman being accepted in the cellar, is, I mean, it's today, modern day, that boggles the mind. You know, I for one, you know, my mother was, and this is going back to the 80s here, there was such a disparity between what a woman could expect in the workforce versus a man. And she was heavily active in movements to change that. And it's great to see that has changed so much. And it's amazing because in Italy now, women have very much taken control of being, wineries and new projects, and as often is said, the daughters have taken over in the wine business in Italy. And obviously, what you guys have produced all these years is absolutely amazing. So the one thing though that I think is really interesting as well though about your winery is that when you first started, the style was very different as well. Right. So at one point you had a consultant, was it Carlo Ferrini? Is that correct? Okay. And then he left in 2010. And then that is when Lavigne is, am I pronouncing her last name correct? Mm-hmm. What a last name, right? For a consultant.
Perfect.
And at that point, the winery was 100% run by women from the beginning up to the end product. And I had met her with you, Donatella, at Collezioni. She was there and talking through many of the projects that you guys are involved in that we're going to get to today. One thing I wanted to mention to the people watching is that if you guys have questions for them, please do send them in as early as possible so I can try to integrate your questions into our conversation as we keep on going. So maybe you guys can tell me a little bit though about, so we had a change in consultants. I know Lavinia has her background's in Bordeaux, correct? Okay, you guys froze it for a second there, but I'm sure you're gonna come back. But I'd like you to maybe talk about how the winery's practices have changed, how the style has changed over the last 15 years.
First year, Valerie Lavigne arrived in our property was a big shock, because the first thing that she said, yes, it was keep out the barrique. And it was the last thing that we expected. And the second was that, and I remember that she stopped close by the entrance of the fermentation area and checked with the watch the time that the people used to from the picking to the vineyard, and she said, "You are too slow. You have to be fast. I need a fresh grape less than 20 minutes." So it was a big surprise for us. And I remember that I closed the offices and keep everybody. It was the only thing to do. Yeah, because of course I needed 10 people more to check the berry, to help the wineries, and to be fast. And the second was that we spend a lot of money to buy analysis for the polyphenol ripeness, and she said it is completely unuseful. You have to learn how to taste the grape. and the another thing that she said was, you have to maintain the leaves over the grape until the grape harvest, and to use the leaves to shadow the grape, because in Montalcino, everybody, all the good wineries, clean the vine from the leaves before the grape harvest, and only because there is this tradition. But in the past, when the sun was not enough, it was right. Now it is a mistake, because the sun is maybe too much.
Mm-hmm.
And she teach us how to manage and to have a different to have a different relationship between the vineyard, to understand the vineyard, to become part of the vineyard, and to help the vine to give the best, without any how do you say, if you respect the thing that you usually made in a situation in which the weather is changing, maybe you mistake.
Right, absolutely.
And so we understood that was necessary to have a different relationship, to help the divine to go deeper in the soil. And now the main problem we have is to plant the new vineyard with a different system, with a different approach, to have a deeper rootstock.
So when you mention planting, are you talking about replanting, or are you talking about new vineyards that you're bringing into your fold?
Of course, when I arrived there, my grandfather planted the old vineyard in the bottom, close by a little river, I planted the first vineyard on the top of the hill, where the soil was not so different, but we don't know why the quality of the grape is completely different there. And the quality is always the best in the property. In each kind of climate, it's very easy to cultivate this portion. And so we made 22 excavations all around, looking for another piece
Similar to.
Similar. Unfortunately, it is the only piece with this character. About 2 hectares, a portion of a bigger vineyard. There, the quality is really different, and the soil is not so different, but the water, the clay, is able to give a perfect balance to the vine each year in each kind of weather. It's wonderful.
So actually, I mean, I don't want to jump ahead too far because I definitely want to talk about the wines in a little detail a little bit later. But this does bring up a question that I just don't want to forget to ask. So from what you just explained, I mean, so from what I know, your Brunello di Montalcino is basically made up from your vineyards, but
we don't buy nothing from outside. Yes, correct.
Your Prime Donne is a selection that is made in your winery through a panel of tasting. So the question would be, is there a plan to use this location to create a new Brunello possibly? Or is it just going to continue going into the rest of the production?
No, it was very easy because the four ladies that are selecting Prime Donne Brunello, and they don't know what they are tasting. Of course, they know that they are tasting samples of Brunello coming from different vineyards of our property, but it's evident that the quality of the wine coming from Ardita vineyard is different. So even if they don't know, they are choosing the wine coming from Ardita from 2010. So the selection is a single vineyard from 2010. This is not a wine that we produce every year, but only in the best vintages. And of course, the production is small. So only 6,600 bottles. And yeah, it's a unique wine.
It's a remarkable way to create a bottling. It's one of those things I don't think people realize. I mean, it's not uncommon that a winemaker will make a selection. They'll either be a barrel or a number of barrels, or maybe a few of the people who are working within the winery make a choice between barrels to make a special bottling. But it's absolutely amazing to me that you actually have this panel of very prestigious women that come in and taste and decide what Prime Donne will be each year. And I mean, that's remarkable. I mean, the Brunello is fantastic, but then when you taste the Prime Donne, it's like, wow, it makes so much sense.
Thank you.
But like I said, I don't want to go too much into the bottlings just yet. I want to talk a little bit more because you were talking about this parcel that you identified. One of the first things I just want to mention is, so you are a northern Montalcino producer, correct? Or are you pulling from any vineyards outside of the north?
No.
It was the first thing that we asked for Madame Lavigne, if it was necessary to buy some other property all over the Montalcino hill. And she said, or you win here or you don't win, because you have to become part of this soil, of this vineyard. And it is true. You have to
believe
in this.
To be wanting only with what you have. So if you believe in the vineyard that you planted and you look at the vines every day and you are sure that you are doing your best to have the best quality, you need to go on following what you think, what you are doing.
Right.
And you have to follow also nature. For example, last year, 2 years ago, when Claude Bourguignon went to help us to plant a new vineyard in Montalcino, and he changed our project, asking us to plant some grain, some old grain in that soil, and to wait 1 year more before the vine plantation. And she teach us a different approach, because it's not so easy to understand, but we are really lucky. This area, the northern part of Montalcino area, is the coolest part of our territory. And 30 years ago, it was too cold to have a perfect ripeness each year. Now we are very lucky, because in our area the ripeness is very, very slow, and we have no hydric stress, not so strong that in other part of our region, and so we can work to increase the balance. The most important thing is to arrive at the balance of the vine. Have to be healthy but slim. Has a manquer. How do you say? Has a person that show the fashion. Have to be slim, not fat, not too much grape, but the imperfect balance.
And to feel well,
yeah.
To be happy.
Right. No, absolutely. I understand exactly what you're saying. There are way too many situations where people look very healthy and feel very horrible. So you definitely want that balance in your vineyard as well. I understand completely. And that brings up the fact as well that so as of 2000 and was it 2018, you were certified organic. But how far back have you been practicing organic?
We started
before, but of course, for the European law, if you don't pay for the check for the control, you don't have the right to use the
logo, the organic logo.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, in Montalcino, it's possible to do more to decrease the copper, and in Montalcino, everything is easy because the weather, because the soil is the perfect place for Sangiovese, and so it's really easy.
Do you feel that, I mean, have you been having to make any changes due to global warming outside of what you were talking about with checking, the soils and such, and looking at clones and things? Have you made changes in the vineyard recently?
Of course, we change a lot of things. I remember that about 20 years ago, we have 1 square meters of leaves for each kilo of grape. Now we have 80 square centimeters. We decrease the top of the vines. We use the leaves to shadow the grape, and also the system of cultivation of the soil is made to keep water, inside, and in the future, maybe the first thing that we will do is to decrease the number of vine per hectare. Now we use 5,500 per hectare. But I think that very soon we will have 4,000 plant per hectare to give more soil for each root.
And talking less about Brunello for a second, let's talk really quick about Rosso del Montalcino. For your Rosso, now first I noticed you release later than the average producer, which is actually, in my opinion, a good thing because your wine has had more time to rest and basically come together and bottle. But the question I had, and it's a very common thing that people want to know from Montalcino producers, is your Rosso coming from a vineyard that's designated for Rosso for you, or are you making a choice for Brunello? Okay, so
no, usually the Rosso di Montalcino is coming from the younger vineyards that we have, but the style is different. We want something that you can enjoy when you want. So if you have an invitation from a friend that is calling you, telling, please come, and you didn't know before, so you need to choose a bottle and you don't know what kind of food you will eat, you know that you want something that will be enjoyable. I think that Sangiovese, of course, if you like Sangiovese from Montalcino and you want a wine that will be perfect to have fun, Rosso di Montalcino is perfect to start a long evening or for a working lunch or for a glass of wine waiting for your meal at the bar. So you can choose what you want and just have fun with it. So we don't like to describe it as a baby Brunello because it's the young brother of the Brunello, and the philosophy is different. If you want a wine that will have a very long life and you want to celebrate something important, of course, you need a Brunello. If you are looking for something to have fun, the Rosso di Montalcino is perfect. And if you take a look of the label, you will see that instead of one, what happened?
The label almost ended up on their side of the room. Sorry, go ahead.
Instead of one dove, you have 3 doves. So this is the label dedicated to our family. So me, my mom, and my dad.
That's beautiful. And brava for the idea of having a wine that's easy to enjoy. I totally understand. How from an aging perspective in the cellar, cooperage and such. You mentioned how you've moved all to larger wood, tonneau and botte. How is the aging different in your Montalcino property between the Rosso, the Brunello, and the Primedone?
It is not a difference in the aging, it's the berry that is different. Usually the grape for Rosso di Montalcino, the berries are bigger. And this is the reason why often we use the young vineyard that push more, that give more grape, and the quality is a little less.
No, of course, the goal is different. So, of course, the aging is different, not for the kind of oak, because we have many different kinds of different oak, and the size of our barrels that are from the tonneau 500 liters to 700 liters, and the big botte, of course, this is the tradition that you find in Tuscany. Usually the aging of our Rosso di Montalcino is from 8 to 10 months. What is very important is to find the perfect balance to show what we did before, what we did in the vineyards, as my mom was telling you. So it is the taste of the wine that you have to feel, not the oak.
Right, absolutely. Has there been any thoughts of experimenting with maybe amphora or anything such as that with your wines? Oh, they're laughing. Oh, it's funny. I put this picture up. I thought in the corner. I think. Well, let me see if is it that the. Oh, this is. I'm sorry. I put the wrong picture up. But I had noticed you sent.
This is the other winery. So this is Fattoria del Colle.
And you see the big barrel and the tonneau and of course we have a lot of experimentation and with sweet wines, because my husband loves but my husband loves the sweet wines, and so he became with Passito and Vinsanto, and now he's working with Occhio di Pernice. It's not ready.
Yeah, the vintage, we have a very long aging for the Vinsanto, for the Occhio di Pernice. We are selling the Vinsanto in United States, but unfortunately we are still waiting for Occhio di Pernice. The first vintage was 2001, and even us, we are not allowed to taste the final result. So we are waiting.
Yeah. And then we are trying to grow up another kind of local variety called Sanforte in Fattoria del Colle, where we do more experimentation. Before we walked over the Foglia Tonda, that is an old Tuscan grape that we use for Cinderella, for Cenerentola, and now we are working about Sanforte, that is another old variety of Tuscany. And we are working to produce the first spumante with
the Metodo Classico.
Yeah.
So these are all wines that we will produce in Fattoria del Colle. Because in Casato Prime Donne we decided to produce only wines made with Sangiovese, so 100% Sangiovese, as the Rosso, the Brunello, the Riserva, of course.
So I'm really glad that we mentioned Fattoria del Colle, because that's something I also want to talk about today. Just before we move fully onto that, I just want to make sure I clarify a little bit more with the question about the cooperage in your Montalcino cellar. Prime Donne and the Brunello, just outside of being the selection, the aging is the same, correct? Or is Prime Donne, okay, that's perfect.
Depend of the women, so depend of what the four ladies that are they have different jobs. Two are master of wines, but one is a sommelier and one has a wine shop. They are all friends of my mom. Usually when I was allowed to travel around the world presenting our wines, a common question was, are they part of the family? More or less, yes, because we
totally.
think that
especially
they are very close friends.
Absolutely.
But the reality is that when they taste our wine, we are there to learn from them. So it's what they decide that we have to follow, and it's their taste that will be inside the bottle of Brunello Prime Donne. Usually they choose an aging of 2.5 years in oak. So we start with the fermentation in cement. We don't pump over the wine anymore. We punch down from the top, and we try to do not give any stress to the wine. So we try to respect the wine, and after the aging, and we use cement again. So when we speak about a selection, or in any case when we select the grapes, we speak about not only a a parcelization of the same vineyard, but we prefer to go in the same part, in the same vineyard more than one time, to be sure that the grapes will have the same maturation. And so, of course, usually more or less the aging is 2.5 years in oak for both the Brunellos, but could be possible that the toast of the oak and the size of the oak will be not the same.
Beautiful. I'm actually curious, Donatella. I mean, so obviously you grew up in this family that has this amazing heritage of winemaking, but was this always what your passion was for? I mean, before the leaving from your family's other winery, the time you spent there, I understand you were working there for quite some time. Has this always been your passion?
No, I studied history of fine art. I studied the goldsmith product of Middle Age. And it was my passion, and it is my passion even now. Of course, I love wine, but also I like to visit a museum.
So when we travel, we try to match everything.
Yeah.
Usually in United States, I go to have parties with my friends during the weekend, and she goes to the museums. Oh, it's a disaster. I need to learn more, but
well, I mean, especially on fine art and everything. I mean, here in Manhattan, you have the Frick. In Boston, oh my God, some of the museums in Boston. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But that's great. That's a fantastic. So we've talked about Montalcino, but you guys also have another big project, and we had touched on Fattoria del Colle. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put up a map that shows, and forgive me, viewers, if the map's not the highest quality. I had to basically grab a picture off of a PDF to try to get this up here for everybody. But it's going to show basically our surroundings here at Montalcino, Montepulciano, and then also a area that Donatella has been specializing in, which is Orcia. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the differences of the landscape and the terroir between these two locations?
Of course, the Orcia area is very, very big, and in the north part we have the clay area. It is an area with about 200 meter over the sea level in the north part of the Orcia area of production. In the south part, we are in the at the beginning of the mountain, Monte Amiata, and it is a volcan area. And so in this part, the soil is volcanic. And along the river Orcia, the soil is rich of stones, is alluvionale, is rich of stones and galestro and alberese. So it's very, very different in the different areas of the Orcia area of production, from 200 to 600 meter over the sea level. And also not only the soil is different, but also the weather is different from Montalcino and Montepulciano, because we are in a cold area where until 25 years ago, there was a lot of spring frost. For this reason, it was quite impossible, the grape production in this area, because it was too cold and there was too many springs frosts. And in the last 20 years we had none, and never. And now the production is increasing in quantity and in quality. There are about 60 different wineries, very little. Everything is quite handmade. They are the wine producers are very rich of passion. They are part of families, the local families, and is a group of real, how do you say, person rich of
Passion.
yes,
Passion,
yes,
absolutely.
yes,
Artisans,
yes.
absolutely. On this map, the vineyards that you have, can you give us an idea of where they're situated? Are they more to the north, the south? How are they spread out?
In the north east.
Right, so-
It's quite in the middle. So if you take a look of the map, you can see the name of the village Trequanda. It's
Trequanda.
very small. And so we are in the middle between Montepulciano and Montalcino.
Mhm.
Yeah, at the end of the Chianti area.
And how does elevation change here versus, say, Montepulciano, Montalcino, and Orcia? How is the elevation different?
Allora, come si dice più bassa?
The
Meters above sea
lower,
level?
yes,
is near Montalcino.
Mm-hmm.
We are at 400 meters over the sea level. And in the south part, there are, they are at 600 meters over the sea level, and it is the volcanic area.
Hmm. I mean, the thing that people don't realize is that, well, I mean, people are starting to hear about Orcia, but the amazing amount of value that comes with these wines at this time, because it is not quite as well known as Nobile and Brunello, that value
Eric,
abounds.
it's very strange. Usually when I go around the world speaking about Brunello and Chianti Superiore, it's very easy, because if you have a good wine, and it's very common in Italy to find a good wine, you need to speak, to show about your identity and what is different for your wines. But when you speak about Orcia, it's a little bit different, because usually they don't know what Orcia is. Mm-hmm. It's totally the opposite when you try to explain to them where they were when they came in Tuscany. So if you speak about the hills, the cypresses, and the fabulous landscape that you can see when you pass Montalcino and you go close to Pienza, they realize that this is Val d'Orcia. And this is the reason why if you look at the label, the Cenerentola label, you will see our hills, our cypresses, and a very elegant lady without any face, because Cinderella, as the story, has two very well-known sisters. In this case, they are the Nobile di Montepulciano and the Brunello di Montalcino, the two very well-known wines that we can produce at the end of the Orcia area. But if you remember the story, it was Cinderella to win the prince, not the two sisters. So
I love about your winery. I love it. There's so much passion, there's so much story, there's so much thought that goes into everything from the very beginning in the vineyard through the winery, through the labeling. I mean, it's gorgeous. No,
and we decided to use two autochthon varieties. So we are speaking about Sangiovese, so 65% Sangiovese and 35 Foglia Tonda. The name of this grape is coming from the leaf that is very similar to a heart, really round. And this kind of grape was abandoned, and my mom replanted it around 2000. And so we decided to produce a unique wine that aged for 1 year in tonneau, in 700 liters tonneau, and it's unique. I promise you that this is the wine that when you come in Fattoria del Colle, you need to live. So next to the Brunello, of course.
It's a big challenge, because when the Diociocia was made in 2000, I said to my colleague, we have to compete with Brunello and Vino Nobile. It is a difficult fight.
Absolutely.
You have to use something of different from Sangiovese, because if you try to compete only with Sangiovese, the brand of Brunello and Vino Nobile is so strong that you are not able to win. But if you choose a different kind of variety, and you are really courageous and invest in a typical Tuscan grape and work to increase this grape, we can win. We can compete. Of course, at the beginning, nobody believed in this. Nobody. Because the Foglia Tonda grape is completely unknown, and also was difficult to be managed, because normally this kind of vine produces a lot of grape. And it was really difficult to manage this grape and to have a real balance in the vineyard. And also we spend a lot of time to understand how to pick the grape harvest, the aging, the blend. It was really difficult. But now there is a big passion for this vine, and I hope that now the other wine producer of Orcia follow me in this project, because I think that it is a right decision for everybody, not only for us, for everybody, to have a special blend for Diociocia.
And we are not anymore the only wine producer to produce a wine with Foglia Tonda. We did the first Foglia Tonda convention last February, and we had some producers from Chianti Classico, some from Bolgheri, some from Maremma. Of course, they were using Foglia Tonda in different ways, and it was very, very nice to taste very different wines and to try to learn
from the different experiences.
Well, I can't imagine something that would be more likely to put Orcia on the map than to be able to further define it from these other regions. It certainly deserves that spotlight. As I remember tasting with you at Clisiani, it was Orcia that you were focused on. And I remember, I coming to there and having not really had that experience, and knowing your Brunello production and tasting those wines, I left with my eyes completely opened. And that was one of the #1 things that really stood out to me from that trip specifically. There is actually another interesting wine that I had recently tasted that's coming from your Orcia project. And forgive me, it's Drago e la Ocho Calambe. right? The dragon and the 8 doves. Is that correct? And what I think is really interesting about this wine is this is primarily Sangiovese with Merlot and one of my favorite varieties from across the Apennines, Sagrantino. How did that come about?
Because one of my best friend is Marco Caprai, and he gave me the to grab the vine, and we began with this system with the first little experience. We are at 20 kilometers from the Umbria border, so the valley is quite the same. Our Sagrantino is less powerful than the Umbrian one, but the blend with Sangiovese that is more elegant, more long, Merlot that is more large, more fat, and Sagrantino that is more with the bigger structure. The blend is a good thing. And at the end, you have a wine that is not typical, but it is just a super Tuscan in a different way.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, no, it's. I mean, again, we talk about like the whole package that you present. That label is gorgeous.
This is the wine dedicated to my father. Yeah. So my father is very important. Not only the women are allowed to speak about wine in our winery. Of course, it's the more big and powerful wine that we produce. And in the label, you can see the dragon, that is my father, and the 8 doves are the 8 ladies that are taking care of this wine from the production to the sales and the marketing and communication office. So this is something perfect if you think about a barbecue, if you think about Asian food, or also a soup that is a little bit sweet, because the combination between the spiciness of the Sagrantino with the sweetness of the soup or like something
a pumpkin
else.
Or butternut squash oh, you're speaking my language right now. Absolutely. No, that sounds fantastic. That sounds absolutely fantastic. When it comes to vintages, does Orchard pretty much, is it close to Montalcino? If a consumer wants to go out and find these wines, can they pretty much depend on the vintages being similar?
At the moment, I'm the export manager in the winery. I can tell you that sometimes it is difficult for me because I need the wine. So especially with the Cenerentola, we had to stop the sales for 4 months because we sold out all the 2015 and also the 2013 was a very good vintage. So Cenerentola, we don't produce Cenerentola every year. And now we have the 2016 that is incredible, very, very nice. And I think that now I was tasting it and it's amazing. Of course, sometimes you need some time. So in the commercial office, we push, but we have to respect the wine firstly.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so I guess, I mean, are there any plans for the future, any new regions you're looking at, or any, I mean, we've talked about so many amazing projects that you have your hands in, but you have done so much in the history of your winery. It's just amazing to me. I can't even imagine what else you might have your hands in right now. Anything we can look forward to, any new projects or anything like that?
But you have to come because
right, okay. I'll bring the video camera and everything.
Of course, the 2 wineries are very different. But in you know that maybe you know that I was one of the first people in Italy to promote the wine tourism.
Right.
And I invented the day, the wine cellar day, Cantina Aperte.
Cantina
That is the
Aperte.
day that push the wine tourism in Italy. And so the winery is made to offer a real experience of wine, but also the local history, because Montalcino is a very important place in the Italian history. And in the vinification area, we use the concrete tanks to show, to offer an experience, yes, a video about the sound and the real imaging of our spirit.
About what you can feel and what you can see when you walk in Montalcino. So if you go up to the village, you can feel something unique. And this is what we want to show, considering that coming from Florence or Siena, our winery is before the village. So usually the wine lovers are coming to visit us, and after they go to Montalcino. So,
and the other winery is in the middle of the property. That is a big old property, and it was made by my ancestors in 1592. And there is a villa. And in the underground, there is a part of the winery. The rest is closed by the old building. And now we are making an underground room for the storage of the wine in bottle.
So this is something new. We hope that in 2 weeks everything will be finished, but I don't know.
To marry.
we hope that the project will be end soon, but of course this was not an easy.
She is married.
Not for my wedding, but because we need the winery.
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations, though. Congratulations. I have a really quick question here before we start really wrapping things up from Dan. And I'm not familiar with the wine that he's talking about. He says that he visited your winery and purchased the 2010 Io Sono or Io Sono. And he's asking how long he should age that before opening them up or for trying the bottle.
It has a very long life.
Say again?
This is her favorite wine, only 600 bottles. It's a very special bottle with a single packaging, a single box, and we don't want to show you the bottle. You need to
that's
come.
Okay. Well, how long should he age the 2010 before opening it? Is it ready? Does it have 10 years?
It's a game. He has to play. If he wants, he has to decide the perfect moment, and
Well, Dan, I'm going to try to do. I'm gonna look around and see if I can see anybody who has recently tasted the 2010 to let you know if I can come up with an answer for you as well. All right. Well,
we have few bottles left. We are selling the 2013 Io Sono Donatella now, but we can organize something.
That's beautiful. I'm going to have to try one myself someday. Everybody, thank you for tuning in and joining us today. I hope that I was able to get across to you just how important these ladies are and what they have done. We're talking about a historic family in Montalcino that has only been made more historic by Donatella's efforts, that she has completely changed so many things about the winemaking in the region, as well as opening people's minds, and then also taking on projects. I mean, as we talked about with Orcia, think about this. You have a top Brunello producer, making wines in a region at a fraction of the price. Definitely something to seek out. Thank you for joining us. Violante, Donatella, is there anything you'd like to say in closing to everybody?
No, we are very, very happy that we had the opportunity to be with you and to speak about what we do every day. And we hope to have the opportunity to welcome you all soon.
It was my pleasure to have you here today.